So I'm just going to eat my apple crumble while I'm doing this because I've just done a vlog about loneliness and disconnect, but I didn't like it, so I'm going to change it. I've burnt my tongue on this as well. Anyway, so I decided to change it to things that make me feel less lonely, because I think I would say that loneliness and feeling disconnected from people is kind of a common thing. I think a lot of people feel it, but they just don't talk about it. And I think, you know, people that commit suicide are examples of that. They've usually got loving families, people around them, but they just don't feel connected to people. And I think it's like really easy these days to not feel connected because we're so connected in terms of a social media sense. We see each other on social media all the time. We probably message each other all the time, but we don't truly connect with a person. Like, it's not, I don't know, there's this feeling, I don't know if it's the same for everybody else, but for me, there's this feeling when I connect with somebody where it's just like, you know, like a lock and key mechanism where it just all kind of slots in and it just clicks, and it's just, you're just kind of on the same wavelength. You don't feel like you're being judged. You don't feel like that other person is wary of you. Like, it's completely open communication. Like, you just feel safe and you feel connected with that person. And I feel like when you're not feeling like that, that's when you start to feel disconnected, and that's when you start to feel kind of lonely. So if there's any kind of element of that person's acting a bit strangely, then that disconnects you, because you start then thinking, why are they like that? Is it because they don't actually like me or whatever? And I think that's another thing, we fall into that trap of interpreting other people's behaviour in terms of ourselves, which is quite egocentric if you think about it. Like, if you think about how you behave and what affects your kind of behaviour, it's generally things about you personally. So like, you've had a bad day, like something's happened that's kind of put you in that kind of mindset where you just don't feel great. It's not most of the time down to other people that are in your environment. So for you as a person to interpret someone else's behaviour as being due to you is quite narcissistic, actually. It's like, why would they be behaving like that because of you? Like, they've probably not even thought of you. Like, they've got bigger problems than you. And if you haven't done anything, then that just is completely illogical. So it makes absolutely no sense. So that you can disconnect yourself from people by thinking that they have an issue with you. Like, people wouldn't hang around with you if they had an issue with you. They would just like stop socialising with you. They wouldn't, you know, spend their time. Like, everyone's time is precious, like their social time. If they don't like you, they're not going to spend time with you. So if someone's spending time with you still, but it generally means that they do actually like you. I mean, in minor instances, it might be because they're lonely and they want to just hang around with anybody, but most of the time that's not the case, because there are plenty of people that they could hang around with and they did choose to hang out with you. So that's not often the case. I've forgotten what I'm talking about because I'm distracted by my crumble. Oh yeah, tips to stop you from feeling lonely. So I used to have this viewpoint that I was very different to other people, because I mean, I have different hobbies to a lot of people I know. Like, I don't know anybody that reads as much as I do. I don't know anybody that's kind of reading the kind of books that I'm reading. Like, I read a lot of stuff that is about trying to understand why my mind works the way it does, trying to understand other people and how they work, trying to understand how to communicate better with people so that I do connect with them. Like, I've read a lot of books on connecting with people. There's a really, really good one called Click, which is like the power of instant connections. It's such a good book. I like things like How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's an awesome book. It's a bit like preachy in parts, but it is quite good what it talks about. The transactional analysis, games people play, really good book. Followed up by one so on a similar topic, different author, called I'm Okay, I think it is. Again, on transactional analysis, really, really interesting how people converse in a structured way that you're probably not even aware of that you do. That, you know, you have these transactions that you don't realise that you do, that you're taking part in, like a parent-child interaction. You know, when you get defensive, it's generally because the person is talking to you like your parent did, and you're then responding as a child, which is the defensiveness. So interesting. So like I read all that stuff, but then on top of that, I read like things about like dystopia and about society and about how like questioning kind of the way the world is and stuff, and I don't know, like, and then I read like sciencey stuff, and I read a bit about quantum physics because that's similar to kind of how the brain works, I think. And like I read a lot of spiritual books because I'm like really interested in, you know, half of my brain I think is very scientific, very critical, very kind of trying to find factual things, whereas the other half of my brain is very like tapped into kind of like the universe, which is a complete contradiction to each other. So like I don't know anybody that has that kind of diverse interest. People are quite niche-y. People kind of like one kind of area and they explore that in depth, whereas I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. Like I like a little bit of everything, and I think that enriches me in a better way. I don't know anybody that kind of, I don't know, is as adventurous as I am, in the sense of will try like random things on their own. Like I'm very kind of independent. Like I've been traveling all over the world on my own. I don't feel uncomfortable eating in a restaurant on my own. I don't feel uncomfortable going to the toilet as a girl in a club on my own. Like I feel very different to a lot of the people that are around me. But I think the real reason for that is not because everybody is different. I think it's because on the surface, people are very different. But what I've kind of understood as I've got older is that essentially, deep down, we are all the same. And I think by believing that we're separate makes us feel lonely, makes us feel that we're misunderstood and that no one understands us. And I think, you know, people who are different to me, just because they're different doesn't mean I don't understand them. So then why would they not be able to understand me? And also, you know, everyone deep down wants to be loved, wants to be accepted for who they are, wants to feel like they belong, wants to feel safe, wants to kind of feel that there's people there for them, that they can talk to if they need to. We want kind of people who push us to be better versions of ourselves. We want to feel like we have a purpose in life. We want to kind of do something good. We usually want to help other people out. Like we all have these things in common. We're all the same in that sense. So why do we feel so separate? Why do we convince ourselves that we're so different? Because that's what's creating our loneliness. Actually, if you think about how similar we all are, then we're all together in it. You know, we're all in it together. We should all kind of pull each other, you know, up when we're down, and, you know, push each other to do better, be loving to each other. So this kind of belief that you're different is what creates your loneliness. I think also what creates loneliness is believing that nobody cares about you, which is illogical. You know, I think when people have children, they realise how their parents feel about them, and they realise that the love that those parents feel for their child is unquestionable. And I think until you have your own child, it's very difficult to kind of comprehend that. I think I kind of understand it, but I think maybe I don't get it completely. Maybe I would have to have a child to understand it, but then I feel like I'm quite empathetic, and I feel like I can see that. I can see completely, you know, 100% all in loving a child, even if it's an idiot, you know. And I mean, like when they grow up, I don't mean a child can't be an idiot, but I mean, like if someone grows up and they're a bit of a dick, like the parents still love them. Like imagine like EastEnders with like, what's she called, that Dot Cotton, and her son's like an absolute knob, but she still loves him. Like I get it, I completely see that. So, you know, your parents, as much as they are infallible human beings, and as much as they've got stuff wrong, they do care about you. They always care about you, even if it doesn't feel like it sometimes. And that's the same with friends as well. Like sometimes you get into friendships, you've been friends for so long that you forget that the other person needs to know that you still care. because you just think, well, it's obvious I do, I've been friends with you for years. But it's just nice to have those kind of little reminders. Like, I've got a really good friend and she's really good at telling me how much she appreciates me and telling me kind of like how much she's looking forward to seeing me. And she doesn't do it in a kind of obvious way, it's in a subtle way, so that I know that she still cares about me, which is ridiculous because of course she does. But sometimes you just need to hear it. I think that's the same in any relationship. If you want to feel less lonely, you have to let the other person know how much you care about them, and then they'll reciprocate that and make you feel like that. And that's another thing, like a lot of the time when we feel lonely, it's because we don't do all the things for the other person to make them not feel lonely, so then they don't do it for us. So like, in order to make just people feel less lonely in general, you have to show them that you think about them sometimes, that you saw something and thought of them, or that you know, something happened that reminded them of you, like you of them, whichever way around. Like, you need to let them know, because then they'll let you know, and then you'll feel loved and you won't feel as lonely anymore. Or like, you need to kind of, you know, if they're going through a rough time, you need to be there for them. And that's not fun for you, but it helps them. It helps them feel less lonely, and then in turn they will be there for you. I think a lot of the time when I've been in like situations where I felt lonely and I felt like no one cared about me, and nobody offered help or anything, when I really reflect on it, I think, well, they're probably thinking in their head, well, she wouldn't help me, so why should I help her? And I think every time you have that feeling, that's stopping you from connecting with people, and that's stopping you from having a friend. Because as soon as you offer help to somebody and you kind of are there for someone, even when it's not fun for you, you open up that connection so that they will then be more likely to show that to you. You know, when people aren't there for you, it's not because they don't have that capacity, they do, they just feel like you wouldn't do it for them, so why should they? And I think a lot of people in society think like that. They think in reciprocal terms. They think, well, I'm not going to do it because they wouldn't do it for me. But actually, like, I'm not happy being that kind of person. I don't do things because I think I'm going to get something back. Like, I do things because I want the world to be a better place. Like, there's a quote that says something about plant trees for the shade that you'll never sit under. So in other words, you know, you'll plant a tree and it'll provide shade for somebody else in the future, but it won't provide it for you. And it's in doing that that you kind of make the world a better place. And that's kind of the motto of life that I would go by, is that I want to improve the world by me being here. Like, that's my purpose in life, is to make it a better place than it was before I got here. So if that means like being open and truly loving people and kind of showing them that they can be like that themselves, then I've kind of achieved my life goal. And so if I can make people feel like less lonely and more connected, then that's great. And so I don't know where I'm going with this, and my crumble's getting cold, so this is really good as well. 56p reduced apples. So worth it. I don't know, what am I saying? So yeah, hopefully this will have given you some things to think about how you can reduce your own loneliness. And sometimes the way to make yourself happier is to focus on making others happy, because a nice kind of consolation to, not consolation, but like a nice kind of unexpected addition to helping people is that you often help yourself. So work on making other people feel less lonely, and you will also feel less lonely and more connected to people.